How many times in a friendship have you swallowed a need? Um, like you held back a request or you stayed silent about something that really mattered to you because because you didn't want to seem needy in that friendship. That fear of being too much. It's real, isn't it? And it keeps so many of us stuck in friendships where we give and give, but we rarely receive. Today, we're breaking that pattern. We're talking about how to communicate your needs in friendship without shame, without fear, without apology. Because the truth is, you're not weak for having needs. Welcome back, my dear friends. Um, Thank you for, again, spending some time with me in this conversation. This one here may touch, again, some really vulnerable zones in your experience, but it's one that I believe we all need. As always, I'm going to remind you at the outset, please don't see me as a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just someone who's had to unlearn the belief that needing support makes me a burden. And I believe that healthy friendship thrives on two core pillars. Number one, integrity, the alignment between what you value and how you show up. And the second core pillar for me is intimacy, the willingness to say, into me, see, when even when that includes letting people see you in your neediness. Because here's a truth I think we often forget, that having needs does not make us needy, right? It makes us human. But most of us, we're conditioned to we're conditioned to believe that asking for emotional support is a sign of weakness, or that it puts pressure on other people around us to show up in ways that they didn't really sign up for. And so we default to being self-sufficient, to being independent and low maintenance, right? And then and then we wonder why we feel unseen and unsupported, and why we grow quietly resentful. So it might be helpful to see where this fear of being needy comes from and why this fear runs so deep for so many of us. See, I think it comes from a few places, like past experiences where vulnerability was met with dismissal. Maybe once you opened up and you felt ignored in that moment, or you're mocked, or you're minimized. Perhaps that was your experience then. Or maybe it was a cultural messaging that, that celebrates and praises independence, where we're taught to handle things ourselves, that needing others is a flaw, not a feature of being human. Friendship dynamics where you've always been the giver, but rarely ever the receiver. When you're always the strong one, asking for care can often feel like you're breaking character, right? So, my dear listener, just take a moment and pause and reflect here. When did you first start believing that your needs were a burden? And who taught you that being low maintenance made you more lovable? Naming this isn't about blame. It's really more about awareness, because once you see where your story begins, you can start writing another one, a new one, and shifting that mindset. But here's what healthy need or expressing need could look like. Like, how do we actually communicate these needs without feeling like we're asking for too much, right? Well, I think it starts with that word, that pillar where you talked about earlier, integrity, where we align our desire for meaningful connection with our willingness to voice what helps us feel safe and what helps us feel supported. So here's I think what healthy needs being expressed could sound like. It sounds like clarity over hinting, right? I've been feeling a bit isolated, you could say, lately. Would you be open to a catch-up call this week, perhaps? It's um, it's owning your emotions without blaming someone else. Saying something like, when I don't hear back from you for a while, I notice that I start to feel disconnected. Is there a time we can talk about what that communication could look like that feels good for both of us? It entails, I think, being specific instead of being vague. You could say, like, I could really use some encouragement around this situation here. Are you available to hold space for that? Notice in these scenarios what's not present. There is no apologizing for your feeling. There is no downplaying the request that you are coming with. There was no wrapping your need in self-deprecating humor just to make it easier to digest. You're instead simply inviting connection, and you're not demanding it. But in this process, here's what you can expect and how you can handle some potential responses. See, the vulnerable part is when you start voicing your needs. People will respond in some different ways. Some are gonna lean in, right? They're gonna be like interested. Some will match your honesty. They'll be like saying, "Thank you for being clear. I wanted to hear some ways I could be helpful," right? Others, however, others, they might get uncomfortable because they're not used to emotional depth. And as a result, they might pull away because they may not have the capacity or the willingness to meet you where you're asking them to meet you. Some might dismiss it, right? They might dismiss it because they benefited from the version of you who never asked too much. My dear listener, this is where intimacy and integrity can protect you. If someone responds poorly to your honest, respectful expression of need, that again is information, right? It's not a sign that you should shrink again. But remember, the right friendships aren't going to punish you for being human. They'll instead welcome the chance to know how to love you better. And that's a beautiful, intimate thing. Reframing the story could have a bridge. Like as I close here, I want you to consider this truth. And that is that your needs, they're not inconveniences. They're invitations to deeper connection, to mutual care, to real friendships. And when you communicate what supports you, you're giving people an opportunity, a chance to show up meaningfully. That's a beautiful opportunity, right? for deeper intimacy. You filter out connections that were built only on convenience. And you begin to model what healthy, reciprocal friendship looks like. And that feels good. So the next time that voice in your head whispers, don't say anything or you'll seem too needy, just pause, breathe, and remember, you're not asking for too much. You're instead asking for what's true. And that's a beautiful thing. That's deeper connection. In our next episode, let's explore when you're always the helper, but no one seems to check in on you because being the supportive friend, it shouldn't mean being the emotional, invisible one in that relationship, right? But if this conversation we just had resonated, consider sharing it. Practice one small moment of voicing a need you have this week and then assess how it feels. And as always, my dear listener, go gentle on yourself. Be kind to your heart because you're doing much better than you think.